Hi, my name is Danielle Liso, and I work for the University of Florida Center for Autism and Related Disabilities here in Gainesville. Today I'm going to be sharing a couple of tips on eating out with your child with a disability. We know that especially around holiday time, you tend to eat away from home, in other people's homes and in restaurants, so we wanted to try to give you some tips to how to manage that, especially as the holidays approach. So the first thing is, give advanced planning a thought when you can. Where are you going? Is there stuff for your child to do there besides sit and wait quietly for their food? Are there things to look at? Are there things to color? Are there things to do? What type of environment is it? Is it bright or loud? What sorts of things might set your child off that we might be able to do something about in advance? Has your child been there before? Typically, if it's a familiar restaurant, you can anticipate some of the things that might trigger your child. If it's a new restaurant, it's a little bit more of a risk. Will your child have to wait? Now, of course, we almost always have to wait for our food to arrive after we order it, but will he have to wait before he's seated? Because we might need to think of some ways to help him be better at waiting. Can you access the menu online beforehand? So I find this helpful with my own kids, and that is when we sit down, we know exactly what we're going to order, and we don't have that extra time of perusing the menu. This can be very helpful also if you're going to be using pictures with your child, because it'll help you prepare the pictures you need for him to be able to ask for things or say no thank you. Are picture menus available? So some restaurants, either online or in person, will provide a picture menu that has both words and images, and that can be very helpful, especially if your child is working on ordering. And then, of course, can you call ahead and ask about things like celebrations, noise? Can you reserve a table that's maybe in a quieter spot, maybe not near the front door or near the kitchen? Those are all things you can consider. Another thing is adding going to a restaurant to your calendar. So since for some of us, or at least I think some of us, we don't go to a restaurant every night of the week or most nights of the week, it's helpful to put that on the calendar as something new and different to look forward to. You want to make it something good, not something to dread, but let them know that that's coming. You can also use your first and then board to say first restaurant and then something fun, or even first school, then restaurant. Add a picture of the restaurant to your daily schedule or your travel book. So again, another way to indicate here's where we're going today. Count down sleeps until your restaurant trip, so kids look forward to that. And then if you can, visit the restaurant in advance. Prep pictures of the menu. If you have a menu available, you can use the one they have. If not, you can create some by using Google Images or Boardmaker or any program that produces pictures for you. Practice going out to eat as a home role play. So you can set up your kitchen or even your living or dining room as a place to eat and practice waiting, practice eating quietly, practice saying all done, etc. You can even watch videos of kids eating in restaurants. We love to use video modeling because we know kids are very interested in videos, and we also know they like to watch other kids doing things. So they might take some tips away just by watching some videos of other kids eating out. Rehearse what you expect on the way to the restaurant. So for example, if you're driving in the car, you can talk about, okay, we're going to have to wait for a few minutes. What are we going to do while we wait? And then what are we going to do after we order? And we're going to sit and we're going to do this while we're waiting at the table, and so on. Social stories can be helpful for this too. At the restaurant, my advice is do not ask the server to bring your child's food first. Because what happens is your child gets served first, but by the time your meal comes, they're already done. And so now they're ready to go and you haven't even started eating yet. It always makes me feel bad when I see a family leaving and you can tell that the parents' dinners are in a bag leaving the restaurant because the kids ate first. The reason that we do this is because we don't want the kids to have to wait very long. So one option would be a little snack that you bring, something simple like grapes or crackers, to eat while you're waiting if your child is hungry. You can even ask the server to bring you a piece of bread, something like that, so that your child doesn't get filled up but has something to eat beforehand. And of course, you can bring other activities for your child to do instead of eating before the meal arrives. My advice about your activity bag is that you want it to sort of be like Santa's bag. You don't want to dump the whole thing out on the table and let your child pick from that, because it could be that they scan the options and they don't want any of those. So instead I would offer 2 at a time as a choice. Do you want to do this or this? And when they get bored with it, take it away and put out 2 more alternatives. That way they'll stay with an activity as long as they can and then be willing to make a trade. The next thing is plan breaks away from the table. So if you know it's going to take, 10, 15 minutes before your food's going to arrive, at least once and maybe even twice before the food arrives, get up and walk around. So what I typically tell people is come in, sit down and order, and then say, hey, let's go wash our hands for dinner. or use the restroom. And then come back, and if the food is taking a little bit more time, say, oh, can you help me? Can you walk out to the car with me? I forgot something in the car. Just those little breaks from the table can help your child sit when it is time to eat. At the restaurant, you want to start small. So I know it would be ideal if we could sit down and enjoy a leisurely meal with our kids and not have any issues and be able to eat everything and pay and go. But for some kids, that's just too long and too many demands at one time in a loud environment with smelly foods and people and so forth. So you might say to yourself, today, we're just going to shoot for 10 minutes in the restaurant. And I know that's really just enough time to order, which is kind of a bummer. But the idea is that over time, your child will learn to tolerate longer periods in the restaurant. By the way, this might mean that you might start with fast food restaurants because even though they're not glamorous, they still get the job done and your child learns how to eat and go without having to leave early. Tell your child what's going to happen during the meal. That can be very helpful. We're coloring while we're waiting for our food. We're eating and then we're going to go to the store. 10 more minutes and we're going to leave. Those kinds of things are really helpful for kids to keep them in the loop about what's happening. More ideas. I've talked about the first and then board, so you can use it while you're waiting. First we're going to order, and then we're going to eat, or first we're going to color, and then we're going to eat. You can also use it to say, first you're going to eat, and then we're going to go do or get something fun. That being said, follow up the restaurant visit with a preferred activity or reward when you can. That's not always going to work. Consider using fidget toys. Now, the thing about a fidget toy is you don't want it to be too distracting, and you want your child to be able to relinquish it when it's time to eat. So you might want to experiment with that a little bit, but I have found that to be useful. Use a timer. So say we're going to be here for about 10 minutes waiting, we're going to be here for about 20 minutes eating, we're going to be here for another 10 minutes waiting, and then we'll leave. Doesn't always work out exactly, but kids like to have that visual representation of the passage of time. And then consider giving your credit card to the server ahead of time. Because sometimes after you're finished eating, that's when your kid is ready to go. And if you're waiting for the server to come back around and hand you your check and then give them your card and all of that stuff, that can take an extra 10 minutes. So to cut off a little bit of that time, you can hand it to the server, maybe even as he brings your food. So another question I get asked a lot is, what do I do when people are staring at us? So maybe you have a kid who's not behaving perfectly in the restaurant, because most kids don't, and you have people who kind of get a little nosy and they kind of produce that onlooker judgment kind of thing. Well, we don't like that, but here are your choices. You can either ignore them because it's really none of their concern what you're doing. You're working on something with your kid and it doesn't really involve them. You can educate them. You could say, I have a child with a disability and this is a skill that's hard for him, and so we're here to practice. You can thank them and say, thanks for your concern, but we're all good here. What else could you do? I don't know. I mean, to me, I think that the most important thing is you're doing what's right for your child and your family. If you feel like you want to educate the public about these kinds of things, you're more than welcome. But just know that you're not going to be able to educate everyone. And so my thought is, don't worry about everybody else. You do your own thing. Other considerations. Booths are usually better than tables because there's no rocking of the tables and no falling over. You just have to worry a little bit more about personal space when you're in a booth. Sometimes I'll use the napkin holders and things to show a kid where his personal space is in between the other people in the booth. Consider asking for a corner, a quiet area, or a dimly lit area. You can also, I would recommend starting at a regular restaurant or a fast food restaurant, but not a buffet, and not a restaurant at its busiest time. A buffet is very confusing. When do I get up? When do I sit down? Unlike most restaurants, in a buffet, you might get up several times, which might confuse your child. And then busy restaurants at busy times simply means you're going to have to wait longer, and that's usually not a good thing. Consider dining outdoors or on the patio at first, because that might make your kid feel a little more comfortable. Hide the condiments. So if your kid sees ketchup and salt and pepper and butter and they see all those things as being something that's fun to play with, I would hide them. Don't allow for inappropriate behavior in the restaurant because you don't want to set the precedent that it's okay to do that here. I know you want to eat your meal out, and I know this is something you've been looking forward to, but we do have to put limits on what's allowed so that the kids don't learn that I can behave this way in a restaurant. And of course, give as many choices as you can. So even though the kid hopefully has been able to choose what they want to eat, they also can choose other things like where they sit, who they sit with, what they have to drink, what color straw they get, anything you can think of really. Final thoughts. Start small and go slow. Your kid might have a meltdown in the restaurant, so you know what? Your outing might only be a few minutes long. As I said a moment ago, we want to put some limits on what behaviors are allowed. So before you and whoever you're going out to eat with go out to eat, sit down and talk about what are we going to allow and when are we going to just call it quits and say, okay, we'll try again another day. You might just want to go out for an appetizer or a dessert first and then build up to a full meal. Remember why you're dining out. This is supposed to be a fun experience, so if it feels like too much work and too much stress, maybe you need to take a break for a little while or maybe ask for some extra support. Don't let the opinions of others or the reactions of others discourage you because, like I said, you're doing your own thing. Remember the difference between a skill deficit and a motivational deficit. So if your kid is having a hard time at the restaurant, you have to ask yourself, is this because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do or because he doesn't want to do it? If he doesn't know what he's supposed to do, we have to teach him that. And if he doesn't want to, then we have to think of a different way to motivate him. Keep your eyes out for precursor behaviors. So if your kid is starting to get fidgety or whiny, that might be a good time to take an extra break from the table, give him something preferred to do while he waits, get him to calm down, and then say, thanks for calming down, and then give him that rewarding thing so that it doesn't go into a full-blown meltdown. Keep trying. If you avoid restaurants all the time, your child won't have enough practice to become successful with them. So you want to keep making that effort even though it seems like a lot of stress at times. When people ask me about meltdowns in restaurants, I usually say, remember, again, what is the purpose of your outing? You want to remember it as a good experience. So you set your limits. If your goal is to walk away from the table with your child when he's having a difficult time, come back and try again, I would say put limits on that. So he's melting down, you take him away for a break, you bring him back, he melts down again. I would say maybe do that 3 times, and then I would say, we're going to call it quits for tonight. But you have to keep trying. You have to be persistent because it's a really important element of quality of life to be able to access the community, and that's something that we want for all of our families, especially you. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again here soon. Bye-bye.